Hello. Sorry, it was lighter before. My room seems to have gotten darker. I'm gonna try and brighten things up. Oh yeah, we're off to a fabulous start. Bear with me. It's just as well no one's logged in yet. There we go. Maybe a little bit too bright now. Now it's like I'm being interrogated. This is so weird. Okay, I'm going for that interrogation vibe. Yeah, superb. I've got literally like laptop light, room lights on, everything. Alright, we're just gonna stick with this. I'm not gonna faff around with the lighting for 20 minutes. So, oh, mug. Hey! So sorry I'm a little bit late tonight, everyone. Hope you're doing good. This is Cup of Tea with JG, episode 3. And if you're joining us tonight, again, absolute privilege to have you. Welcome. If you haven't been on before, I basically do this every Sunday at 7 PM. We have a different topic. It's just pretty much based on whatever I've been thinking about, stuff that's come up in the week and stuff. Most importantly, that I think would be helpful to you in your life, and again, the main focus as well being to try and shift your perhaps automatic kind of routine Sunday focus away from anything negative to positive things. So first question, like I always ask, is what are you drinking? Me personally today, nothing. I've just finished my tea before we actually came on, so I'll just be pretending to sit throughout this one. And second thing I want to ask you is, what's something you are grateful for right now? What's something you're feeling grateful for in your life? And it can be in any area. It's not a question you ask yourself often. I would honestly recommend that you do this on a routine, regular basis, because no matter what's going on, and I totally appreciate that you guys, like all of us at certain times, may have a lot of stuff to legitimately be stressed out about. But like Tony Robbins says, like, what's wrong is always available, but so is what's right. And I think, in fact, the times when we're most stressed is the most important time to shift our focus to, for instance, something we are grateful for. I mean, it could be something you're happy about, or if that's not jump into your mind, if you had to be happy about something, what could you be happy about? But for right now, let's think about 3 things that you're grateful for. And to give you an idea, I mean, think about areas. It literally could be anything. It could be something that happened to you today. It could be something you're grateful for, that like a moment that happened in the past, whether that was in a relationship, whether that was in something financial, something at your work, you got a new job, or you got a compliment from your boss or a colleague, or somebody liked your status on Facebook. It's like, it doesn't need to be. I think a lot of times is that when posed that kind of questions, we maybe are seeking out some kind of big, grandiose moment, and it absolutely doesn't have to be. If anything, I think, kind of like we mentioned in previous episodes, that it could literally just be the smallest things that sometimes slip beneath our, out of our radar, that we're not recognizing. And if we were more aware about these things in our life, that it might actually lead to a completely different emotional state. I mean, I honestly am grateful for the opportunity to do this video and share, subjects I'm passionate about with you guys. I'm grateful for the technology that we have available to actually connect in this way, with Facebook as a whole, and Facebook Live and that kind of stuff, because in this kind of society, in this country, like, we're blessed with having things like this, which just and we almost take them for granted, whereas that is not, in different areas across the globe, like, that is not necessarily accessible to things that people have. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the rock climbing session that I went to this morning with some of my friends. It was really good. Got to go up on the ropes, which I've not done for a very, very long time, and it was really enjoyable. Learning how to belay and that kind of stuff, and climbing up higher than I would do typically when I'm just bouldering. So that was really fun. And lastly, I'm grateful for all of the people that I have, in my life, and how much love and support they give me in lots of different shapes and forms. And grateful for family and friends, always. So I hope you've asked yourself that question, and again, as always, if you want to share what you're grateful for, go ahead and punch it down in the comment section, and if you don't, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so now I had a bit of a I don't want to say rant, but a passionate discussion, maybe a couple of years ago or so now, when I did one of these Facebook Live videos, and that is the topic that we're talking about today, which is stop telling yourself that you're shit. So you maybe don't, but maybe somebody or some people who are telling themselves this on a frequent basis. Maybe they sound like a broken record, and maybe despite all efforts to try and convince them otherwise, is that they just keep saying it. I'm sure you can think of someone, or maybe several people in your life who tend to do this, and I think it happens for a few different reasons. But what I want to go through today is just some of my thoughts on this personally. The first thing is that I think when people say this, I mean, let's get the obvious out of the way. It's a very derogatory way of describing yourself, and so I think I'm a big believer in that words are powerful, and they should be treated carefully, not just when, I think a lot of us are very cognizant of how we use words when speaking to others, but actually can be quite ruthless when we're describing or talking about ourselves. And if you imagine, I think this is a good little exercise, is that you imagine if, what was that quote, is that if you spoke to your friends like you did to yourself, would you have any? And if the answer is no, then you probably need to start changing how you're talking to yourself. And now, I'm not saying this in like it's just easy to do, because I know a lot of this is subconscious. We've kind of just slipped into habits of kind of berating ourselves. But saying something like, oh, I didn't do so well there, or I wish I could have done better, compared to, I'm shit. It has a completely different connotation to it, and a completely different, lightly emotional reaction to that. So I think it's really important to really choose your words carefully when it comes to, and usually where this comes up is that when we're attempting some kind of task, something we've tried, something we want to do, and we maybe haven't done as well as we wanted to, maybe we haven't succeeded. Now, I don't let people get away with this anymore, because I think of this as just, I try to take all emotion out of it, and it came up a lot when I was coaching CrossFit. And I don't know why this particular example sticks in my head, but a lot of times with pull-ups, whether it's strict pull-ups or kipping pull-ups, is that people would be getting incredibly frustrated with their either lack of perceived progress in comparison to others. It's always, because I think shit, telling yourself you're shit is always really a relative term, because what's shit to one person isn't to another. I'm going back to my comparing everything to the gym, but in the case of the pull-ups, just to use that example, is that if you're saying, if you're saying, you know, somebody with, you know, 5 pull-ups, like you can do 0 or 1 pull-up, and that's shit in comparison. Hey Nikki, how you doing? So if you're saying that, you know, I can't do any pull-ups, or I can do 1 pull-up, or whatever it may be, and I'm saying, oh, that's shit because so and so over there can do 5, but then you might be thinking then, okay, well, when I can get to 5, then it'll be all good, then I'll feel fine. But we all know that we're all moving the goalposts all the time, and for that person who's doing 5 currently, is that like their PB, they're probably saying the same thing, like, oh, well, so and so's got 10. Oh, and so you kind of condemn yourself eternally if you're telling yourself that where you're at in this given point in time is shit until you get to X insert number here. And it's almost like this process of like achievement inflation, where we're never going to be good enough because we're always comparing ourselves to the person, you know, ahead of us, rather than comparing ourselves now to where we were. And I think the important thing is, I believe that a lot of people, when they're talking about this, is that, I don't know why it is in kind of in our particular sort of culture here in Britain, is that there's this big sensitivity to being, I think, perceived as, you know, arrogant, and we tread carefully when it comes to acknowledging our achievements in fear of becoming or appearing arrogant. But I think if modesty was here, I think we just walk straight past that into kind of actually just criticizing ourselves, you know, or belittling our achievements. Like someone says, oh yeah, you got your pull up, oh well done, that's amazing, and they go, oh well, yeah, there's nothing really, I mean, it's just shit. I mean, and you know, you're saying that, I think partly, I'm sure it's different reasons for everyone, you know, because it's, you know, you maybe don't want to come across as arrogant, maybe it's kind of like a protective, a defensive response. But I always caution people to remember, whatever the intent is with that response, is that if you don't acknowledge your achievements, there is always, I mean, you can be focused very much on the people ahead of you, but if you not just not acknowledge but actually downplay your achievement, if there's someone in earshot who's behind you, how do you think that makes them feel? And I'm not saying this to guilt trip anyone whatsoever. I'm saying it to try and increase your awareness. One of if you're going to compare yourself, I would always encourage you to compare yourself to where you are in this given point in time to where you were. But if you insist on comparing yourself to others, you've got to be fair. You've got to then compare yourself to the people behind you, not just to the people ahead of you. And it gives you a much more balanced perspective and then feeling after you've done something like that. So I honestly think that I would encourage you to, you know, when somebody says that, it's like, rather than saying, oh, well, it's just shit or whatever, it's nothing, like, acknowledge the compliment. Say, oh, thanks, I worked really hard to get to that point. And then you acknowledge what, you know, the compliment somebody's given to you, and you're also then inspiring the people behind you who are trying to get to where you are. So think about that, really think about that, and have some awareness rather than just reactively answering to that kind of compliment with a response of kind of just downplaying it. So I think that's really, really important. And the other thing I want to say is that I when I try and remove kind of like, I absolutely totally agree, Nicola, compliments are massive gifts. So when I think about you know, using that terminology and it kind of, you know, is always, it just puts emotions into play. And I think sometimes when it comes to, you know, saying that you're shit in relation to where you're at trying to achieve a goal, I personally have become more of a fan of just regarding this as a spectrum. So let's just say, you know, this is, at this point here, point B is you have achieved this goal of whatever it is you want to do. And I'll stick with hey Jason, I'll stick with a pull-up example for now so we don't just get lost and ambiguous here. But with the pull-up example, let's say you know that you want to get 5 strict pull-ups or whatever it may be, and over here is that you don't have any. So achievement is always on a spectrum, and you know, when somebody says they're shit, what I'm trying to say is what you should be doing is just pretty much acknowledging and recognizing where you are now in that spectrum of achievement. And secondly, the question to ask is achieving this thing that you're saying you're shit at, is it important to you? Do you want to get better at it? Because a lot of people are saying, oh, I'm shit, I can't do this and blah blah, and so and so's got a million. I think a lot of the time it's that they feel bad because somebody can do something and they can't. But does that, if you don't care about that, does it matter at all? You know, like one of my friends is really good at Call of Duty. Every time I go on that, I die within like 2 seconds. Like, I am terrible at Call of Duty. But do I really care? Like, it's not something I'm interested in getting better at. So I could waste a lot of energy saying, oh God, I'm terrible, I'm really awful, that blah, blah, blah. But I don't actually want to get better at it. So it's a complete waste of energy. Now, if the answer to that question is, yeah, I it's not just that I'm comparing myself to someone else, I genuinely want to get better at that skill, then like, okay, great. So if you really do, you'll do whatever it takes. Let's formulate a plan to take you from where you are here to where you want to be, point B. And you've got to define point B specifically. And the reason I say that is because if you don't define what your outcome is, you won't know if you've got there, and it leaves you liable in that kind of murky water to still be thinking you're shit, because it's very likely then you'll just go back out to going, oh well, what is good, what does signify an achievement. You look at the people who, I don't know, have 20, 50 pull-ups and then start saying shit again. It doesn't mean that you can't keep striving, be ambitious. Yeah, absolutely. But I would say, you know, we've all heard of SMART goals, all the rest of it, but I would say let's not make this ambiguous. Let's define what is, yeah, I've reached where I want to be for you, and then mark that point, then set up a plan to get there. Does that make sense? So we've taken anything about the shit or whatever out of the picture. It's just where you are in relation to where you want to be. Is it important to you to get better? And if yes, then that's what you do. Yay, great. So that's one thing. The second thing I want to say is that if you've noticed either in yourself or in other people who are saying this a lot, and it's just, you know, all the time, saying it all the time, then them telling themselves that, or you telling yourself that, there might be a motive, you know, behind that, as in they're getting something out of saying that. And I think sometimes is that it's honestly, you know, to be quite frank, is that honestly sometimes it's an excuse. So if somebody is saying, I don't know, they want to do something, but every time, you know, it comes up and there's no changes happening, and they're just saying, you know, that they're shit every time, saying that is almost like a little bit of a story, which I think starts to kind of justify inaction and removes any accountability that you haven't got there. So what I mean by that is that if you tell yourself this story that, oh yeah, I'm shit and blah blah, and that's why I can't do this thing, and you're almost kind of describing it as then that, well, I can't do it because I'm just shit. So it just means then that it removes any need for you to, you know, do any work or come up with any plan, to get to that goal. And you know, we could go deeper into why is it that you're, you know, how's that come up, and why exactly have we got into this sort of state where you're telling yourself this story. Maybe you've attempted to achieve this goal in the past, but you weren't able to do it, and now you're afraid of trying again if the same result happens. So rather than try again and be sort of seen to fail, is that you tell yourself, oh no, well, I'm shit, so whatever happens, I've got this kind of, this story, this excuse that I tell myself that kind of validates the lack of progress. Now, let me be clear here when I'm saying this. This is 100% not in any kind of accusing manner whatsoever. That isn't the point of any of this or why I'm describing this. But the point I am trying to get across is whether this is something you recognise in maybe in yourself, because I think we've all been there. I'm sure we've all had experiences like this, or in a loved one that you've noticed saying this, is that we bring this stuff to light and into awareness so we can help them, so we can do something about it. And again, I would sort of encourage you to maybe to go back to those questions initially and sort of be saying, well, is it really important in the first place, or are you just kind of holding on to this? Are other people trying to make you think that it's important? That's a big one. Are other people trying to make you think that you should be better at this, and insert whatever it is there, and now you feel bad that you're not, but in your heart you know it's not really something I'm that bothered about. So go back and maybe ask yourself, that question initially, and if the answer again is yes and it is important to you but you're frustrated, I think the first step is that we can end up harboring a lot of shame and embarrassment and humiliation and very negative emotions like that really really bring us down and really make it hard to actually start taking positive step forwards towards our goal. So I think sometimes it's finding someone who you really trust to share what it is that you're going through, and say, you know what, I've wanted to be able to do this for a while. Whether it's I've wanted to lose this extra weight I'm carrying for a while, and I tried this diet thing before and I stuck with it for a while, and then I just slipped back into my routine and I put the weight back on, and I'm kind of embarrassed and worried about trying to do it again. And now I just find that even at the thought of trying it again and being seen to kind of fail just really worries me. So I end up just maybe comfort eating, and I'm not happy about that. I want to be at this point, but I just seem to be stuck in a bit of a rut. I think getting it off your chest to someone who, and this is important, is that you don't just be saying that to everyone, because it's important that you're going to be someone who you're comfortable with, who you trust, who's going to give you a good response and not fuel the fire of your own anxiety. So make sure it is that with somebody that you trust for that reason. But then once you've got off your plate and go, right, okay, I've just done a brain dump of, emotional dump of all this stuff that's coming back, right, okay. And I think this is where empathy is really helpful, is that we can get swept into thinking, oh, it's just me. I'm like, God, what is wrong with me? It's always me that's just going through this and no one else does. Whereas in reality, for everything that you're worried about, there's almost always somebody else that has gone through the same experience. And hearing that, knowing that we're all in the same boat, and going, oh God, I thought all this time, I thought it was just me. Whereas in reality, it's like, once you know, oh yeah, other people experience this, I already feel a lot better about things now. You're in a much better position to start taking those steps forward. And you just a case of, like, if that didn't work for you before, it doesn't mean that nothing will work. I mean, heck, there's so many things out there. It's just a case of changing your approach until you get to that goal. But I would take the time to do those things first, because just leaping back in, we're going a bit off on a tangent here, but just leaping straight back into, I'll just have another go, whilst holding on to those kind of negative emotions, I think often we end up self-sabotaging and then in a bit of a vicious cycle. So that's my thought on that, and we're going to start wrapping up here in a second. The last thing I kind of wanted to sort of tie this up with, so to speak, is have a think about, in your life or in the life of somebody close to you, what things come up that trigger you to kind of self-criticize. And if it's not telling yourself you're shit, and maybe it's something, some kind of similar description, telling yourself you're no good at, or whatever it may be. So what's one thing that you've noticed that you're doing this with yourself, or somebody you care about doing this to themselves? And then ask yourself, is that thing in question important to you? If no, let's just discard it. If yes, let's acknowledge where you are on the spectrum, define where you want to be, recognize where you were and where you've come from, and celebrate. I think we're rubbish at doing that. Yeah, you finally made it, Mum. Well done. And I'm just about to finish now. I'm kidding, but I am actually about to finish. So you've totally taken me off track as well. Anyway, so yeah, acknowledging and celebrating where you were. And I think we're so rubbish at that, aren't we? It's like, oh, celebrate, yeah, great. Or like, we're not, like, in Britain, that is not our thing, is it? Like, the Americans are so good, like, yeah, buddy, awesome. And like they just can't, they're always doing it. Whereas I think it's honestly so important, and I'm not saying you have to have, like, host your own party, but just recognise and appreciate and celebrate how far you've come just thus far. That's really important. It's always, I think, gives you a real big boost and makes progressing to the next stage feels that much more fun when you go, hey, I've actually come really far already. How cool would it be to kind of push the envelope a little bit compared to I'm nowhere, I'm nothing, I haven't done anything, I'm at rock bottom, I haven't achieved anything before to get to this point. And you're just starting with, you know, it's almost much more of a push yourself to this next level rather than kind of being pulled by that motivation, that kind of positivity. I honestly believe that so much. So that's pretty much it for today's episode of Cup of Tea. I'm going to touch this once, have I? Cup of Tea with JG, episode 3. And very last but not least is that I have started a Facebook page called Journey. I'll put the link in the comment section below. I would really like it if you went to check it out and just see what you think. And if you do like it, just do me the honour of hitting me up with a like on there, sharing it with your friends and tagging people in the post that you think would benefit from it. I've also been uploading the Facebook live episodes onto the Journey YouTube page, and there's a bit of other content on there as well for you guys, so feel free to check that out. And if there's anything as always that you're struggling with, or you'd like help with, or just want to chat and share experiences, please always feel free to contact me via personal message or whatever it may be. I mean that 100% sincerely. So I'm there for you. We're there for each other. Yeah, see you soon, mate. Yeah, nice to see you. So that's 100% sincere. Part of the reason for this was just to remind us that we're all in this together. There's no need for you to feel alone, and you always know that you've got a place to come to on these episodes at the end of the week. So take care, guys. I hope you have an amazing week.